Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating psychology behind why you make the choices you make and how totally unseen forces are silently shaping our entire society. We are going to pull back the curtain and explore the hidden levers of human behavior. We'll be looking at everything from why massive public policies completely fail, right down to the meticulous, calculated science of changing your mind. Okay, let's dive right into this core puzzle. Why do humans consistently act against their own best interests, even when the rational choice is just completely, undeniably obvious? I mean, we've all been there, right? We know exactly what we should do, but we end up doing the exact opposite. And the crazy thing is, this isn't just a quirky personal flaw. When you multiply this kind of irrationality across millions of people, it creates massive structural problems for society. Let's start with Section 1, the human behavior problem. To really get a handle on this, we have to look past the usual market or state failures and look at social failures. Check out these real-world examples from India, which just brilliantly illustrate how our behavioral quirks lead to total public policy breakdowns. The government builds these expensive toilets, right? But citizens simply don't use them. New, highly dangerous variants of tuberculosis spread like wildfire because patients just decide to stop taking their prescribed drugs halfway through. Thousands tragically lose their lives every year to rash driving. And maybe the most baffling of all, parents fail to immunize their kids even when the vaccines literally don't cost them a single penny. It goes to show that just providing a service or a perfectly logical reason is rarely ever enough. So, what's the fix? Well, planners finally realized they couldn't just keep throwing money at the issue. They needed a totally new approach: behavioral public policy. This essentially means integrating deep psychological research directly into social spending. The idea is that by understanding how people actually think, rather than how a textbook says they should think, planners can dramatically boost the effectiveness of taxpayer money. That brings us to Section 2, the anatomy of persuasion. So how do we actually change behavior in the real world? The primary tool is direct influence, basically persuasion. And persuasion is definitely not magic. It's actually a meticulously calculated formula that breaks down into 4 elements: the source, the message, the context, and the audience. It's like a giant puddle. If you want to persuade someone, you can't just worry about your talking points. You have to perfectly align who is saying it, how it's being delivered, the environment around it, and exactly who is listening. Let's start with the source. For you to believe a message, the person delivering it absolutely needs credibility. And they usually build this in one of 2 ways. They might claim pure expertise, leaning heavily on authority. Think of a doctor in a crisp white coat telling you to buy Sensodyne toothpaste. Or they might go a completely different route and appear deeply trustworthy to build social capital. Think of the yoga guru Ramdev, where the appeal is all about shared values and a personal connection. Both methods totally work, but they target completely different triggers in your brain. Now, the delivery of that message also has to pivot based on who is actually listening. If your audience is already on your side and super involved, a simple one-sided message hits the nail on the head. But if you're dealing with a highly intelligent or undecided crowd, they're going to immediately spot multiple sides to an issue. So, for them, presenting a 2-sided message actually feels way fairer, making it vastly more persuasive. You essentially have to tailor the complexity of your argument directly to whoever is receiving it. And then there's context, which is absolutely fascinating. We love to think of ourselves as super rational beings, right? But get this, if you're distracted, you're actually much more likely to accept a persuasive message. Why? Because your brain literally lacks the bandwidth to silently argue back. It's wild. Also, if time is tight, a short emotional appeal will beat a rational argument every single time. And demographics play a huge role too. Young people are way more likely to buy into a message that promises popularity, whereas older audiences are generally persuaded by guarantees of security and health. Moving right along to Section 3, the power of nudging. But what happens when direct persuasion just flat out fails? What if people simply aren't listening? Well, that's where we get into indirect influence, or what behavioral scientists call nudging. A nudge is such a brilliant, simple concept. It's all about altering the decision-making environment itself. It's a tiny, practically free change that subtly guides your choices, totally bypassing those irrational biases we've been talking about. It doesn't ban you from doing the wrong thing, and it doesn't even try to convince you to do the right thing. It simply makes the right choice the absolute easiest path to take. This indirect approach relies on these little micro cues, primarily using 3 incredibly effective techniques: setting a default option, tapping into social proof heuristics, or just increasing the salience, which basically means making the desired choice much more visible. Let's look at those first two in action. The default option is basically a superpower. People will overwhelmingly stick with a default choice just by doing nothing at all. If you make renewable energy the pre-selected box on a utility form, millions will use it simply because they couldn't be bothered to uncheck it. Then there's social proof. We are incredibly social creatures, so we constantly rely on the behavior of our peers as a mental shortcut. If you see people in your friend group quitting smoking, your brain uses that as a cue, making you significantly more likely to quit too. Policy planners also leverage what's known as the loss norm. Science has proven time and again that we humans inherently hate losing things way more than we like gaining new things. It's just how we're wired. So instead of telling citizens about the wonderful benefits of a new program, planners will actively highlight the specific things you will lose if you don't opt in. Fear of missing out is a seriously powerful nudge. But this brings us to our final section, Section 4, the dark side of influence. While these interventions can undeniably save taxpayer money and even save lives, things do get a bit complicated. We have to confront the ethical elephant in the room. Is it actually right for invisible planners to decide what the best choice is for you and me? This quote right here perfectly captures that exact tension. Nudging relies heavily on this somewhat paternalistic idea that a small group of experts inherently knows what's best for everyone else. And the critics absolutely hammer this approach. They forcefully argue that nudges slowly chip away at your personal autonomy. Plus, the impacts are often strictly short-term. Sure, they might change your behavior today, but they don't really create deep, lasting change. Furthermore, a clever little nudge is not going to solve massive structural problems like extreme poverty. And since human behavior varies so wildly from place to place, a nudge that works perfectly in one city might fail spectacularly in another, meaning one-size-fits-all policies are pretty risky. Now, to be completely fair here, governments already shape our actions every single day through traditional methods, like heavily taxing things they want us to stop doing and offering subsidies for things they want us to start doing. But as we start institutionalizing these subtle psychological nudges, we're definitely at a critical crossroads. We need much stronger, more rigorous mechanisms to test this behavioral research, ensuring we improve policy without overstepping our boundaries. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. If the invisible hands of choice, whether through perfectly targeted persuasion, sneaky default options, or subtly designed environments, are constantly guiding your daily actions, who is actually in the driver's seat of your life? Are your choices truly your own? Or are you just coasting down the path of least resistance designed by someone you've never even met? Seriously, think about that the next time you leave a default box checked online. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.